I came to magic out of like a dire need for transformation in my spiritual
Mm,
life and a need
mhm,
to solve like real world problems. And
mm,
I just saw that my logic mind and my anxiety mind and the systems kind of around us are
mhm.
built to not really solve those problems so good.
Yeah.
And the way to solve those problems is to get a little kooky and just go there, you know? Is
Yeah.
to talk, is to realize that you are God and you can talk to God and
Yeah.
we are all are God and that
Yeah.
all of reality might not really be real in the way that we think it is.
Mhm. Record. All right, what is up, everyone? Welcome back, or welcome to the channel. If it's your first time, I'm here with a special guest for just an interview conversation video with Ben Warfield, and Ben is the owner of Mithras Candle. Is it Mithras Candle or candles, singular or plural?
Singular.
Singular, Mithras Candle.
Yeah, like the
Yes.
platonic ideal of a candle.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, and I have recently received a shipment of candles from Ben, and they are excellent quality. I mean, this isn't like it's a little bit of a sponsored video. I'm happy to talk about your products too, but it's not all we're going to talk about. And I do have some that I've been using. Like I have a bunch. I have this golden one here, which is beautiful. And my favorite thing I think about these candles is the smell. They smell
Yeah.
yummy. Like I want to lick it a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
And
could go into that if you want, or we could save it for later.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um yeah, while we're on the topic, go ahead and just kind of speak on where the scent, the aroma comes from with the candles. No.
Yeah, I think that is the number one thing when you're talking about beeswax that everyone talks about, and it's the aroma. It has this alchemy. So whatever the bees are pollinating in their environment, they bring back to their hive, and that's what you're smelling. So you're literally smelling like the landscape that they live in, and you're getting all of that floral aroma with the honey. So oh, I'm coming in and out. Sorry about
It's
that.
okay.
So the so the beeswax literally acts. It's their building material, right? It's their
Mhm.
concrete, so and metal. They make their houses at like all the hives walls are made out of it, and then where their food stores, right? So the honey is
Mhm.
like in a little hexagon, like you see the entire hive is structured out of these little hexagons, right?
Right.
For multiple reasons, for airflow, for strength, all kinds of stuff. But they store their honeys in these hexagonal barrels, and the wax that candles are made with is the lid for the barrel. And the
Mm.
reason why is because it has that floral aromatic quality, but also it has the honey
Mm.
smell because it's literally like the lid on their little jars of honey that they
Yeah.
eat.
Yeah.
It's kind
It's
of, and that's what you're getting. Yeah.
Yeah, and it definitely has like that honey smell and then something else, like the aromas of just the nature, like what you described. Um, and so they're super quality candles. I really appreciate them. And, it's an incredible business that you're building too. I personally had never owned a beeswax candle before. And so just I appreciate the care and the delicacy that's involved in maintaining the quality, and using it as it should be used.
Thanks so
So,
much for that. Thank you.
yeah, you're welcome, of course. So that being said, we're gonna get into a little more about you and your journey, and just a little bit of more on the background of that, as well as like the science of light and health and sound. Not maybe not sound, but kind of maybe a little bit of sound based on your email earlier.
Well, we're both musicians. Yeah.
We
So,
are. Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. Cool. So let's start just kind of from the basics, or the beginning. So you are in the occult in some capacity now. What led to your journey before the candle making business, unless that was the beginning of it? What led your beginning curiosity in the occult? Yeah, go from there.
Yeah. Well, ever since I was a child, I grew up in rural Pennsylvania.
Mm,
Um, and I was always interested in the occult and the paranormal. I was always in the library, the public library, hanging out in that paranormal occult section of the Dewey Decimal System, which is escaping me now what the numbers are.
Mm,
But
it's
you know,
okay.
you name it, ghost stories, witches, Loch Ness monster, aliens. I always had like a stack this high on my bed as a kid. So that kind of primed me. And then also on my mom's side, she came from a huge Irish Catholic family, seven sisters. They call
Mm,
themselves the Pleiades, which I thought was really interesting. But
really?
they, yeah,
Well,
and
that
they,
makes
I don't
sense.
know,
Yeah.
yeah, seven
Yeah.
sisters. But I don't know if it's the Celtic history or what. But there was definitely like a kind of a gift there. They would have dreams about each other when someone was pregnant or when an accident
Hmm.
was had happened or was going to happen, and then dreams about when people might be really sick. When I was 7, and my grandfather was really sick in the hospital, we were my brother and I were sleeping in my cousin's bed, and in the middle of the night his spirit, he was like a glowy ghost guy, and he
Hmm.
showed up in my cousin's doorway, and he was just kind of smiling and looking at us, and I woke up later that night and my mom was in the room, and I was like, mom, I saw grandpa and he was here in that doorway, and she was like, he died like just a couple hours ago. So there's
Hmm.
things like that kind of where it's like, I don't know if everyone has these experiences. I certainly think everyone's capable of them, but
Hmm.
there was always sort of like a tinge of that growing up,
Yeah.
sort of the gift from spirit. And
Hmm.
my mom was interested in tea leaves and astrology and all kinds of stuff. I'm also a student of the late 70s, early 80s,
Hmm.
so that was kind of in the culture and the zeitgeist.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I came from a childhood like that, almost straight out of Stranger Things, right? Uh,
Yeah.
rural, very rural, suburban, bikes, D&D, that kind of stuff. And that to me, I think of that as like the loam in the soil that
Hmm.
truly grew into like what is happening now. And then it kind of laid dormant for a few decades.
Hmm.
uh, I went to art school. I had a
Hmm.
little indie record label for a while. I really got involved in the arts. And then I kind of switched gears. I was always I kind of had the trifecta as a kid: arts, humanities, science.
Hmm.
I thank my parents and a really good public school system at the time for that.
Hmm.
But yeah, so I ended up going through art school, going into music, and then coming out, and sort of to earn money, I worked at a scientific research lab
Hmm.
at a medical school in Philadelphia called Jefferson. And I kind of leveraged my computer and imaging skills and my interest in astronomy to join them right when they were applying for a big grant from NASA.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I know this is going to be a long story to touch
That's
on
okay.
to get to the occult stuff. I swear I'll get there, but
Yeah.
I think other people might resonate with this, where it's like
Hmm.
it was a really, when you're a child, your authentic self. So it might have been like they might feel like magic was a big part of their childhood, like innately, right?
Hmm.
And I think we see this in most children, and then it's suppressed, right, by
Yeah.
society, and then they'll have sort of a midlife or later life awakening, and they're
Hmm.
dealing sort of with shame, and they're like, oh my god, there's this whole part of myself that I suppressed, and it has to do with the non-rational and the esoteric,
Yeah.
and or like you were just doing things because you said, I seen other videos of yours where it's like I was
Hmm.
part of the church and then I had an awakening,
Yeah.
you know and you realize that like God is not something that's like outside of you pushing in, but inside coming out, right?
Yes.
So I was kind of in that first part. I was like, okay, I'm interested in science. I'm just going to do kind of what interests me and kind of what I feel like I should do, instead of
Hmm.
really exploring who I was, right?
Hmm.
And so I ended up, but I felt like spirit. I see now that spirit was always kind of guiding me, because I ended up in this research lab from a this well-renowned scientist in the light, like the photobiology world, and I'll get
Hmm.
into that story. But he
Yeah.
was also a mystic, and he
Hmm.
started the Yoga Research Society. His name is Dr. George Brainerd,
Okay.
and he just retired last year at Jefferson. But he started the Yoga Research Society of Philadelphia, of
Hmm.
Jefferson University, and really pushed hard to they had to change the name from yoga to mindfulness-based stress reduction to make it accepted by the scientific community.
Oh
But
wow.
they really, yeah, you know, they had to couch it in scientific, academic, like very erudite kind of terms to make it accepted. But he was able to do
Sure.
that and really bring this part of himself, I think, that was separate, because he had had a spiritual awakening as a child where he saw experienced light, sort of a conscious
Mm.
form of light, and he got interested in Edgar Casey and
Mm.
all these things. If you know, I don't know if you know about Edgar Casey. That's
Not
really
very well. Yeah, I know I'm familiar with
okay.
the name, but I don't know too much about him.
Yeah, Edgar Casey was one of these sort of mystics from the early 20th century. Maybe he was
Mm-hmm.
born in the late 19th, but along with like Rudolf Steiner,
Mm.
who would go into trance states and connect with a sort of extra dimensional or God intelligence and receive these downloads. And he had a lot of followers, and his followers formed a group in Virginia Beach called the uh, Association for Research and Enlightenment, or something like
Hmm.
that.
Okay.
And so Dr. Brainerd was really involved in that. And I came to the lab just being like, hey, I'm gonna do Photoshop work for you because I just got out of art school and I
Mm.
love light because I was a film major and I did my own
Yeah.
music and I shot films and I'm really into
Mm.
space. And they're like, okay, cool. And I'm working with people who are like, here's my Kodachrome slides. Like we still use fax machines.
Yeah.
So I kind of like literally came into this lab of like mystics and kind of helped who were very good basic scientists, mind you,
Mm.
and they had just discovered a whole new sensory system in the back of the eye. So
Hmm.
what they would do is they would bring people in late at night when they'd normally be asleep, and they'd put them into a chair between midnight and 3:30 a.m., like right
Mm.
during the peak of when people are asleep, because
Mm-hmm.
that's where the peak of your sleep hormone melatonin is. And
Mm.
then they would take a blood sample during that initial time in darkness to get a sample of how high the melatonin was.
Mm.
And then they would have them look into a dome.
Mm-hmm.
It's called a Gansfeld dome. It's German for full field.
Okay.
And there would be pure monochromatic light. They'd have this really bright xenon arc lamp in a tube. And the xenon arc lamps are like the lamps that you'd find in really bright stadium lighting, or those like Hollywood
Mm.
spotlights that the Batman signal, like really
Yeah.
bright, really broad spectrum. And it would go through a tube into a teeny tiny series of prisms and
Hmm.
filters that would scatter the light into a rainbow, right? And then just filter out one specific band of pure color. And
Wow.
I don't know if you know about the electromagnetic spectrum, but it's different wavelengths, right? It's either
Mm-hmm.
particles or waves, and
Yeah.
they vibrate at certain frequencies, right? Just like sound.
Mm-hmm.
So for the visible spectrum, it goes from like ultraviolet, the edge of purple, right, all the way
Mm-hmm.
through infrared, like the edge of red. And
Mm-hmm.
that the wavelengths of those are about 380 nanometers up to 760 nanometers. That's how wide the waves are. So
Okay.
this little filter was 10 nanometers wide. So it could go through like over 50 different really narrow, very pure colors of light.
Hmm.
And it had to be very bright because you're filtering out like 95% of the energy, right?
Yeah.
So to get it to be bright enough to see the effects of it on our hormones, they had to use a really bright light. So anyway, long story
Wow.
short, yeah, it's a really cool science, a really
Yeah.
beautifully designed study that my boss had clearly thought decades about, and finally had the funding in 2000 to 2001 to do it right before I got there.
Wow.
And they took them through the whole spectrum of color, and they knew already that there were rods and cones in the back of the eye. The rods are to see black and white, right?
Mm-hmm.
Light or darkness. And then the cone cells are these little retinal cells, and they're attuned to three colors in men: red, green, and blue. And now women can be tetrachromats, and they can have an extra cone
Hmm.
between green and blue, I believe. So they can
Interesting.
women are superior color discriminators.
Huh.
Just so you know
Huh.
that.
I wonder
Which is
why.
interesting. And I can
Yeah.
give you a test to show you if you are, which is cool.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I'd love
yeah,
the test.
it's really
Yeah.
neat. It's theory. I can give you the theory. The theory on that
Uh-huh.
is that women were the doctors for
Mm.
thousands of years. They were the
Mm-hmm.
herbalists, the medicine keepers, and they were
Mm-hmm.
out there going through the plant material, and they had to
Yeah.
make fine, distinguished decisions between very similar leaves, very similar colors.
Mm.
So that would make sense, right?
So
That
it's
they
an
would be able to.
evolutionary thing.
Yeah. So most of this is like evolution of physiology, human physiology
Yeah.
kind of stuff. And the reason it's theorized that what they discovered by taking these people through the spectrum was that there was a sensitivity, there was a color between blue and the blue cone and the green cone that's sort
Mm-hmm.
of like a cerulean, like a
Mm-hmm.
blue green sea sapphire ocean kind of color
Mm-hmm.
that suppressed melatonin the best.
Hmm.
Everyone thought, oh, it's just the green cone, it's doubling up, it tells you be asleep or awake. It's
Yeah.
the blue cone. No, there was a whole new sensor, like photoreceptor.
Huh.
And they also discovered by taking this discovery and doing it in mice, like mice studies, they found that it's an ancient pathway. It doesn't go along the optic nerve into the brain. It goes
Hmm.
way down into your vertebrae and up and innervates the pineal gland. And
Hmm.
here's the crazy story. My boss, the mystic,
Mm-hmm.
got into all of this because he was interested in the pineal gland and consciousness research, that the
Hmm.
pineal gland was like the seat of consciousness, the seat of the soul. It
Yeah.
connected you to the spirit, to God.
Hmm.
So really kind of cool that
Yeah.
that discovery led to this major discovery in neuroscience and vision, and it completely changed lighting as we know it. And now all our devices, we know that blue
Mm.
light at night keeps us up, so your
Mm-hmm.
phone changes color, your monitors change color.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone, I don't want to say everyone, but I feel like, have you heard, like most people have heard, light at night can keep you awake, right?
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And blue light, especially, I see you have blue lights going right now.
Yeah. I
So,
know.
so you're going to be up late.
Yeah, yeah, well, yeah. Honestly, maybe that's why I've been staying up a little bit too late. I don't know. I like the blue for like the background vibe here, but it's not on all
Yeah.
the time. So,
It's very
uh,
alerting. It's our studies and tons of other studies have shown in humans, because my different mammals have slightly different cells and receptive wavelengths and stuff. But in humans, it keeps us up. Bright
hmm,
light, bright blue light, or just, I'm sorry, bright white light or blue light keeps us up at night.
hmm,
And what's cool is you can use it as a kind of drug to like shift your sleep cycle forward, or
hmm,
you can use red light to kind of shift it back. So there's
hmm.
whole companies now, like all lighting is getting smart and it's incorporating all this knowledge.
Yeah.
And it's all kind of just going to show that we are animals that evolved with this 24-hour solar cycle, and the
Hmm,
skies got very blue during the day, and when we looked up and saw blue sky, we were
hmm.
like, okay, we can't be sleepy, so your body suppresses the sleep hormone.
Yeah.
So what we're doing when we see this blue light at night is we're fooling our body into thinking it's daytime.
Okay.
Anyway, that's the takeaway.
Interesting. Yeah.
But
So,
yeah,
yeah.
to go back to what you asked, like a quick
Uh-huh.
answer to this is the long explanation of that
Yeah.
part of my life. What I saw there kind of planted the seeds for, oh my God, it's okay to be interested in mysticism, but also be a scientist, like
Mm-hmm.
logos and mythos. It's okay to be rational in certain things, but then also it's interesting to be non-rational and to
Mm-hmm.
ask the question, what's out there? And I came to understand, just like Newton and my boss and so many other scientists,
Mm-hmm.
that they made these huge discoveries through their own like spiritual pursuits and
Hmm.
going to the fringes of science. You
Yeah.
know, like the stuff he was interested in was really laughed at for decades, you know,
Hmm.
and so kind of amazing. And now it's a whole field, and it's changed lighting technology on planet Earth, and it's just wild to have seen that, and all that kind of stuck with me.
Yeah.
And then I'll get to the rest later, but yeah.
Yeah. Sure.
I'm sure you probably have
I
questions.
do. I do have a couple questions rattling around. So, okay, so so really quick, so if blue light keeps you up at night, would its opposite color be the one to help you stay asleep, or to make you more tired?
That's a great question. So if you think of us, if you think of our hormones as basically evolving and adapting to the environment of planet Earth, right?
Mm-hmm.
For the majority of time we've been humans, and before that, proto
Mm-hmm.
humans and Neanderthals. we had blue light in the daytime, and we had darkness at night.
Hmm.
Sometimes we had the moon. I don't really want to get into that. It gets
Okay.
complicated.
Yeah. It's okay.
But moonlight does have physiological effects, which is fascinating.
Hmm.
But it's really firelight at night, right?
Mm.
For so long, they're thinking what over 150,000 years we've had,
Hmm.
maybe 500,000 we've had fire. I don't know.
Yeah.
But so we evolved to have that long wavelength, red, orange, and infrared light at night.
Mm.
And so what's amazing is it gives that light gives us light to do task by and activities and read, but it
Mm.
does not suppress melatonin.
Okay.
So that's the other thing that kind of led me to candles. I had
Yeah.
that exact same thought that you did. I was like, wait, we're studying this blue light. Who's studying red light? Like, who's studying these ancient technologies like fire? Like, we evolved with fire. How does that affect
Yeah.
us? And
Huh.
it set me down a hole looking into these ancient lighting technologies, and then finding candles, and then getting a bunch of candles, testing them out, really falling in love like you did with my
Yeah.
first experience of beeswax, and being like, holy crap, what is this stuff? It smells amazing.
Yeah.
It's so awesome. And when you light it, it just has a different vibe. And like,
It
as a
does.
magician, right?
Hmm.
And I have all my theories on why that is, and not just me, but it's been written about, you
Mm.
know, and our ancestors, ancient cultures wrote about it. They held it was a sacred material, along with honey, along with propolis, because they understood that the beings that made it, the bees, were instrumental to our survival because they
Yeah.
pollinate our crops, our food.
Mm. That's so, yeah, that's so interesting. And it comes like from the elements, it comes from nature. And I feel like when I'm using it, it is a different vibe, like than just buying a store-bought candle or something. And not that those candles don't work, but it's just there's more of a connectedness with the beeswax candles, I feel. And a grace and a beauty about them too, which I really love. And also I really appreciate the merging or the blend kind of the mysticism mind and the scientific mind that happens that you've described. And I always am fascinated by people who have an expertise in both and kind of blend them together, which gets me to a quick question, I guess, before we get into another one. Do those two minds ever battle each other? Not like battle's kind of maybe the wrong word, but is there ever something, that can't be answered necessarily by the scientific mind that like seeks that answer, but is maybe answered by the mystic mind? Like, is your scientific mind ever unsatisfied by not being able to measure something in a certain way?
I've definitely seen that in my boss, or ex-boss at this point. He's
Mm-hmm.
retired. But yeah, I've seen that frustration with him. I saw he had much more of a desire to take what was unknown and begin to dissect it and know it. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that is I'm kind of understanding. I think that's the process with all of our sort of scientific advancement of the last, since the Enlightenment, right? Five, six
Mm-hmm.
hundred years. Um, and I do understand that, but I've gotten really comfortable and really into just shutting that mind off,
Mm-hmm.
because for me it's connected to anxiety, it's connected
Mm.
to the voice of uncertainness
Yeah.
and lack of self-confidence. And for
Mm.
me, I've learned in my non-rational spiritual practice, which is a very academic way of saying the magic that I do, or
Mm-hmm.
the rituals
Yeah.
that I do. I have a friend who works for Google who's like a climate scientist. She calls
Mm.
it that. She's in Pittsburgh, and she said, "Oh, what you mean is your non-rational spiritual practice." And I was like, "Yeah, that's what it is. It's not
Yeah.
rational." And that really, through her and thinking about that, that was a while ago, but it gave me a doorway to be like, you know what? I'm just gonna turn my rational brain off, and like
Mm-hmm.
and really go with feelings and emotion. And that's something that
Yeah.
Damon Brand, as we've talked about, Damon
Mm-hmm.
Brand has, and the Gallery of Magic books have really got me to understand that magic is a feelings based system. It is
Yes.
not a rational, logical system.
Correct.
And at least to me, and I think when it's most effective. And obviously, you know, I'm sure Isaac Newton proves that wrong and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
but, and the alchemist. But And I think Magic nerds might attack me for this, and maybe I need to dial it back, and I'm going too far. But this is in my own experience, right?
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
know a lot of people love to like take the Kabbalistic tree of life and like analyze it like it's a D&D module and like project it, and really get into the details, the history. Well, it went from this grimoire to like this manuscript, and like I love that, and that academic work is so essential. That work is
Hmm.
essential and awesome. But for me, I came to Magic out of like a dire need for transformation in my spiritual
Mm,
life and a need
hmm,
to solve like real world problems. And
hmm.
I just saw that my logic mind and my anxiety mind and the systems kind of around us are
Hmm.
built to not really solve those problems so good.
Yeah.
And the way to solve those problems is to get a little kooky and just go there, is
Yeah.
to talk, is to realize that you are God and you can talk to God, and
Yeah.
we are all are God, and that
Yeah.
all of reality might not really be real in the way that we think it is.
Hmm.
And anyway, just to go real woo
No,
real
yeah. I
fast.
love it. I love it. No, it's okay. I love going there.
And then I think like a lot of when you first practice magic, how exciting it is to see like, oh my God, like it's like the first time you ride a bike or the first time you have sex or the first
Hmm.
time you might try a substance, say, or something, or
Hmm.
go on a big trip. It's just, it totally changes your worldview. Like,
Yeah.
oh my God, angels are real, or like ancestor spirits are real, or like I can, my will focus can change reality. Like it's wild.
Yeah. It
It's
is
really wild.
wild. It is. And I love everything that you said. And I think like for me in my experience, like I definitely got into magic from a place of I don't even think I was intentionally seeking to transform my spirituality. It was just I wanted something and this was a means of maybe getting it. And
Yeah.
in that process, it has and still does like transform and evolve my spirituality. And then along the way, like after I was already doing it, then came sort of the analytical curiosity is like of like where does this come from, like what am I doing, what am I contacting, and the research and the reading. And so I don't, it's definitely not necessary to like read all the books and have all the information and analyze all the things before you do the magic. You don't even ever have to do that if you don't want to.
Yeah. I love
um
what you said though. It's like you kind of need the proof. You need to taste the pudding to get the proof first. And
yeah.
then you're like, then you become curious. Although I heard someone recently call them armchair magicians, people who are purely interested in an academic, historical,
Hmm.
cultural sense
Hmm.
and never practice. And I find that interesting too, and I'm sure it's worthwhile. But I love that that was your approach as well, that you
Yeah.
became curious after practicing. And I found that to be true as well. I don't know if you find this, maybe you find this to be true, but did you sort of feel like you were disempowered in life and you sought magic as a way to empower yourself?
Yes, 100%. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
and I just
I
got
felt that
chills
too.
too. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so core. And then it makes you wonder like, wait, why are we all programmed at this time in this country to be disempowered?
Yeah.
And that raises that could be a whole other podcast about,
Right.
we have my son is going to a Waldorf school. I don't know if you
Mhm.
know about Waldorf schools, but they were started by Rudolf Steiner, who was
Mm.
friends with Hilma af Klint, who is an amazing occult painter and artist. I don't know if you've
Wow.
heard of her
Mm-mm.
before. Look up Hilma, Hilma, off AF Klimt,
Okay.
Klimpt. I believe it's Dutch, but I'm not entirely sure. But she
Okay.
was friends with Rudolf Steiner, who was German, and she painted thought forms. She
Mm.
painted angels. Incredible. I saw her work at the Whitney a few years ago, and it
Mhm.
again just one of those transcendent life experiences. But yeah, so Rudolf Steiner started Waldorf, and his whole idea was about power, empowerment, disempowerment.
Mhm.
That children have, they're born from baby town, as my partner calls it, from heaven, baby
Yeah.
town, the higher dimensions. They come in, consciousness forms into matter here, and they
Yeah.
have this precious soul and curiosity, and it's just beaten out by our society, right? And so what Steiner saw, especially at the rise of post-industrial education, which was just to turn children into good, obedient adults who could work in factories or white collar jobs,
Mhm.
he was like, no, no, no. This is like the most precious thing is that we have these souls when we're
Mhm.
kids and
Mhm.
creativity. And so he built a whole school system around fostering that.
Really?
And they still
Wow.
exist today in the form of the Waldorf School. And they're a little less esoteric and animist and like and woo. It's still
Yeah.
there, but it's like a little bit more practical. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
people think, oh, it's just like a hippie school, but there's this like deep occult significance to the
Hmm.
Waldorf School, and it's fascinating. And I find their fundamental mission
Mm-hmm.
of we're all born perfect with these intrinsic souls
Yeah.
and creativity, and it's kind of like pushed out of us and we're disempowered, right?
Hmm.
And yeah, I think what Magick does is a great way to get back to that. And I think a
Yeah.
lot of what, I don't know if you're finding this, but I'm finding this with my own magical journey, is a healing of childhood wounds and like an embracing of your inner child, right?
Yeah. Totally. Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Okay. Lost you for a second. I hear you, but I don't see you.
I'll be back.
Okay. There
There we
you
go.
are. Okay, cool. Yeah, no,
The
I do.
archons of materialism are trying to keep me down, and I won't
Right.
let go.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. Quick story, and then I'll get back to that. Like
Yeah.
yesterday, I was trying to send like my a meditation to my friend, and I was voice noting her on Instagram, and it was like a deep. For me, the meditation was profound, and Siri got in the way like twice, and I was like 3 minutes into the voice note, and then it just completely deleted, and I did it again, and then it deleted, and by that point I was mad. Eventually I finally got the meditation out, but I was like, the government doesn't want me to share this information. I don't know what's
I
going
know.
on, so
It's crazy.
they're getting in the way a little bit, but they're not going to stop us. So
No.
um but but that's so cool about the Waldorf school. I hadn't even
Waldorf, yeah.
Waldorf, yeah, I didn't even know that those existed, so that's
It just makes me
amazing.
think of a salad, right? Not a school.
Yeah,
Waldorf
right.
chicken salad. No, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. Yeah, it's. I was only recently made aware of it, and
Hmm.
yeah, it's really. I actually started selling my candles there. Someone recommended to
Oh,
me, and
cool.
when I was there, I discovered more about it. And then I was like, I had one of those magical moments where I was there vending. This is about 7 years ago or 8 years
Hmm.
ago, and I was like, man, if I want to have kids so bad, and when
Hmm.
I have kids, they're gonna go here.
Oh,
Except I was married to someone that didn't want to have kids, so I had to completely transform my life, right, to
yeah.
get to that point, which I did.
Hmm.
But anyway, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, and I love too what you've been saying about the magic and the authentic selves that we are as children. Because that's definitely something that I've had the realization with in my own journey, is like my interests now are interests that I had when I was a kid that got smashed along the way, and society and even parents and family told me like, no, you have to do this way. Here's the formula for success. And it's like, I don't want to, or this isn't working for me. And then,
yeah,
and yeah, and I ask that in a lot of my interviews too, just about, especially in the Religion to Occult series, where, like, and everyone said the same thing. Like, yes, I was a magical or spiritual child, and some in what some way, shape, or form got away from that for a while, and then kind of had this realization that I started coming back to it. And so I think that's so important. And I love that your son is going to grow up with that sort of cultivated environment, that's going to be beneficial to hopefully um, not dampening that mysticism and that spirituality within him. So,
yeah.
yeah, so that's wonderful. And okay, so to get into a little bit more about your candles, I'm just pulling up my questions here. So, it seems like you have a fascinating, well, not seems like, but you do have a fascinating story already of this journey of light, right? Like from
Yeah,
filmmaking, photography, just the interest in it. And so now, and then candle making. And so what was the initiation point for starting your business? Like when were you like, you know what, I'm gonna make some candles and this is why?
that's a great question. Yeah, I can remember it. It was literally from working at the Light Lab and spending all this time. I was building a moonlight machine, so it was for a NASA grant. This was under. this was like the tail end of Bush, beginning of Obama, I want to say,
Okay.
which dates me. I am in my late 40s, and I've been at the lab for over 20 years now, which is crazy.
Mm.
But yeah, so I was working on this machine that simulated lunar surface light, and what we were seeing is, okay, we're designing our main thing for, excuse me, for
Hmm.
12 years was designing new lights for the space station. So the lights they had were just fluorescent lights like you'd have above in a doctor's office or a school in the
Hmm.
90s or the aughts. I don't know if I know fluorescent lights. Sorry,
It's
fluorescent
okay.
lights are becoming more of a rarity, but I hope people still remember how much they sucked. And they
Yeah.
would sort of be this greenish yellow. They would buzz. They would burn out all the time. And those are the kind of lights that were in the lights in the space station, and they burnt out really quickly, and they just
Hmm.
sucked. So
Hmm.
they needed LED lights, and they were like, "Hey, if we're going to do LEDs, why don't we incorporate this new research that this light research lab in Philadelphia is saying we can change the color of them and like help the astronauts because the astronauts in the space station go around the Earth every 90 minutes. So
Hmm.
they have a sunrise and a sunset every 45 minutes, which
Wow.
creates the worst jet lag you could possibly imagine. They're just like
Yeah.
completely disentrained. So we take advantage of like jet lag. You know how bad jet lag can be just like going at a couple hundred miles an hour in a plane. Imagine
Yeah.
going thousands of miles an hour, right? So they're all screwed up and they're like, hey, we can turn these lights into kind of like artificial suns or like use color to help and train them and give them healthy sleep instead of like it was something at the time like half of all the medications they were taking were either to help them wake up or help them go to sleep. So to
Hmm.
wake up, they just like pop a bunch of uppers, and then
Hmm.
go to sleep, they'd pop a bunch of downers, which was really rough on the astronauts, those poor
Sure.
people who were at the edge of like human achievement, right?
Yeah.
And so we were working on these lights, and they're like, what if instead of just lights, when we get to the moon and to Mars, we have visors that can help filter the light there? So I had to like research like what is the spectral quality, like the spectrum. It's called the
Hmm.
spectral power distribution, like what colors and of light are in reflected lunar surface light. And
Hmm.
so I was doing all this, and then I hit this point where I'm like, somehow I was thinking about the moon, and suddenly I got a flash of like cavemen around a fire kind of.
Hmm.
And yeah, and so that I was like, you know what, I started wondering about ancient forms of lighting technology. I'm like, if this blue light and all this future stuff affects us this way, how did we work with lighting in the past? Is firelight better? Is it healthier for us? We spent so much time with it. And so I got really interested in like candles because I'm like,
Hmm.
oh, that's the in my see, there was my logical brain, which I still have a lot of, but
Hmm.
it was like, here's the best way to bring a campfire into your house is candles. So I
Yeah.
got really interested in them, and I wish I could be more specific, but I can't remember how beeswax came up. But I found a company that
Hmm.
does not exist anymore called the Phalonians, and they
Hmm.
believed. I know I'm going to sound so crazy saying this,
It's
but
okay. Hmm.
they there were a couple who lived with an Amazon tribe in the 60s, traveled their way up from South America, avoiding paramilitary groups with assault rifles. They
Hmm.
got to California in the 60s and painted a bunch of murals
Hmm.
for Walt Disney at Disneyland. And then
Wow.
they took all that money and went and bought an exotic animal farm in British Columbia. And that's where they started making candles. And the one guy was a gypsy, and he believed that his ancestors were descendants of Atlantis
Hmm.
and Mu and those of Atlantis, basically, that he was
Yeah.
Atlantean. And they made this kind of drip candle that I had never seen anywhere else.
Hmm.
And so I got these. I was like, oh my god, those look positively like medieval. And
Yeah.
I was reading Game of Thrones at the time and like a lot of stuff on ancient Greek myths and Roman myths. So I got these beeswax candles, and the smell just completely, like you said, it just blew me away. The aroma,
Yeah.
and I got obsessed. And then within like a year of that, there was a fire at the place, and it just shut down,
Oh my
and they
gosh.
stopped making them, and I literally couldn't find them anywhere else. And so
Man.
I was just like, you know what, I'm going to get some beeswax from my friend who goes to this honey farm nearby. And
Hmm.
so I met this crazy bee farmer, the
Yeah.
beekeeper, and he had all this wax, and I bought it from him, and I took it home, and I made my first drip style candles because I couldn't get them anymore from
Wow.
Canada.
Yeah.
And and yeah, it felt it definitely felt like green lights from the universe from even before I started. Like
Mm.
that almost, it sounds weird, but it's almost like, wait, they stopped. These are so special. I have to keep this going and show other people how special it is. And it
Yeah.
worked. And ever since then, it's just been like, I feel so lucky. And not that it isn't hard, this path. I've been doing this for 10 years. And there's so many
Hmm.
times where we've almost, because of my own stupid business decisions and whatnot and stuff I'm working through. But
Hmm.
just to feel that the universe or spirit has your back and is
Yeah.
always giving you opportunities just because you're doing what you're supposed to. I never knew what that felt like until I started Mithras.
Mm.
So
Oh
that's
wow.
really, that's the story of how it started. At the time I named it, I started making these candles and I'm like, oh my God, I gotta call this something. And I'm gonna go to this. I lived in a neighborhood called Fishtown, which is kind of the Brooklyn of Philly at the time, about 10
Okay.
years ago. And they had a big farmers market that was built on a lot. It was so cool. And I was like, I'm gonna sell there at their holiday bazaar. I need to come up with a name. And we were naming a lot of things after gods and goddesses in my household at the time,
Okay.
just because we found that objects worked better if we named them. So
Interesting.
we're like, oh my God, this is our computer. Let's call it Hermes because it like communicates and it
Hmm.
needs an information and stuff.
Yeah.
And we're like, and I'm gonna call my bike like Mercury because it's like getting me play. And I just found that in
Yeah.
life, naming things after deities, like they tended to take on those qualities and be easier to work with and fun.
Wow.
So I kind of got into researching ancient gods and goddesses, and I'm like, the candles felt ancient, right? They felt kind of Byzantine or even
Yeah.
Roman or like Sumerian or something. And then I found out that beeswax really didn't start until the Egyptians, beeswax candles,
Hmm.
because it was considered too. And actually, no, at the time, this is what I was told. Now I know I think there's beeswax candles found in caves that could have
Okay.
been made by Neanderthals like 60,000 years
Wow.
ago, which I want to see. I haven't seen those yet. But in
Hmm.
general, it was thought that beeswax candles in the West were introduced in the underground temples to the god Mithras, the Roman god Mithras. So
Hmm.
then I fell down a whole hole of like, what
Yeah.
is Mithras? And then I got into Roman mystery cults and discovered that Mithras was. Can I get into this now? Is this
Yeah.
okay to
Yeah. Of
talk about?
course. Yeah.
Okay,
Definitely. That was
so
my next question. So.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, Mithras is a cool ass name. It has myth in the name, right?
Yeah.
And I just said it, and I looked at the thing, and I'm like, this matches. I got to go with this. A lot of this is just intuition. I don't know. I didn't
Sure.
know what I was
Yeah.
flying by the seat of my pants.
Hmm.
But and what was so amazing, this was about a little over 10 years ago. Not a lot was known then, and more is known now, but still not that much about the
Hmm.
cult of Mithras because it was completely wiped out by the Christians.
Hmm.
The Roman Empire became the Holy Roman Empire, and they completely wiped out all the mystery cults, but especially Mithras, because Mithras had a lot of power. It was the Roman version kind of the Masons. You could
Okay.
only serve in it. There were tiers, like grades that you had to work through special ritual and ceremony. There was one
Hmm.
grade for women, but it was for warrior women. They were called the hyenas, and they were kind
Hmm.
of like women warriors, I guess, who had
Yeah.
fought in the Roman army, which I love that idea. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And I wish it was more egalitarian, but that was just the nature of Rome at the time.
Hmm.
And also, things were very divided. Like the women had their mystery cults, and the men
Hmm.
had theirs, and that was that. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So, but so Mithras, you had to have served in the military, and it was this almost Masonic kind of cult where you're learning these grades and you're taking on more and more mystical knowledge as you go. And each grade was associated with constellation,
Hmm.
and the zodiac was tied in. And I think it, the idea focuses on this thing called the Tauroctony, which
Hmm.
is the young god Mithras slaughtering a bull,
Hmm.
and then he is reborn,
Hmm.
right? So a lot of the elements from Mithras show up again in Christ. The
Right.
idea, but also a lot of gods have this. There's the life, death, rebirth,
Sure.
cycle. So that there's that. And but for me, beeswax candles show up in these Mithraic ceremonies. All the temples are underground. So when you're underground and you don't have any light, if they're burning tallow candles or burning oil lamps, they're going to release a lot of soot
Mm.
and
Hmm.
and smell kind of like French fries, right?
Yeah.
So So beeswax candles were like this novel lighting technology for that specific time and place. They smelled
Hmm.
great. They weren't very sooty, and they could burn. They have a long burn time, right, per
Hmm.
ounce. So, and they're also a very valued prize material. So
Hmm.
it would be great to use them in these rituals.
Yeah.
I think that I don't really want to get too deep into Mithras because again, it's all kind of up to conjecture. I think the ultimate truth of Mithraism was that sort of spiritual technology of the eternal soul, which wasn't really
Hmm.
common in the Roman pantheon at the time. That you had a soul that could go on to exist in kind of heaven, and that
Yeah.
Mithras was this. There was this other god outside of the Roman gods and
Hmm.
outside of time and space that kind of existed overall. So it was like the god of all
Hmm.
gods. So
Cool.
almost monotheism before monotheism became a thing. But
Yeah.
anyway, it got wiped out. So so there you go.
As a lot of things did. Yeah,
Yeah. But
unfortunately.
it's just so steeped in that mystery, you know,
Yeah.
and the use of beeswax candles, it just felt like it felt perfect to use for our brand.
Hmm.
And our symbol of the lion and the bee right
Yeah.
here.
Right.
I don't know if, yeah,
It's oh, there you
this,
go.
yeah,
Yeah,
that
I
guy.
gotta
Yeah,
see
you
it.
got it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yes. So that is from the fourth grade, which is the Leo grade. I believe it's the third or fourth grade.
Okay.
And he's carrying a bee in his mouth and with the star above. And I was like, that is so perfect. That's from
Oh
like a
yeah.
17th century manuscript. So
I
yeah,
didn't, I don't even think I noticed the bee in his mouth before
yeah.
until you just mentioned it. But wow, yeah, it's a great
I used to.
logo.
Thank you. I used to
Yeah.
know what that means. It's kind of it's
It's
gone now that I'm a dad. I've lost a lot of knowledge.
okay.
But yeah, so yeah, and that's the story of Mithras. And we had very early on, I had a friend, Pam Grossman of the Witch Wave podcast. I don't know if
Right.
you know that
I've
podcast,
heard of
but
it. I've heard of it. Yeah.
yeah, she's like the Terry Gross of witches.
Cool.
And yeah, so I gave one to her, and she had just started her podcast, and she was like, "Oh my god, these are amazing. Do you want to be my first advertiser?" And I was like, "Yeah."
Mm.
So
Mhm.
I had no idea what I was doing. I think at the time she had a better idea, but she still was pretty new.
Mhm.
And we've just been her. She experienced such success and continues to, and I'm so grateful to her because we've just sort of ridden along with her as far
Mm.
as finding people who have a pagan or neo-pagan spiritual practice
Mm.
or different various spiritual practices that burn candles not just for fun or celebration, but as part of their practice.
Practice,
So
yeah, yeah, and I mean, even outside of my own spiritual practice, I love candles and fire. I went camping like last weekend, and just playing with the campfire and is so much fun to me. And these candles, they're like I haven't had them very long, but there's such a joy that I feel from using them, and they are such good quality. It is medieval in how it looks a little bit. I feel like I could be time traveling a little bit while I'm doing it.
I love
Um,
that.
yeah, and so I recommend to anyone that like watches this or anything that is familiar with you, like to definitely purchase some and try them out for yourself, because it's got its own character, each one. And yeah, and
Yeah,
I
I make we make, and when I say we, it's a generous we. It's usually me, and sometimes it's someone in my family. So it's
mm,
a family business, and we make them all by hand, and each one
wow.
is dripped in layers. So every single one is touched by human hand and is unique. And I think as we were talking before, that's the difference with beeswax and with
Mm,
handmade magical tools.
yeah,
Because I think of these as magical tools.
definitely.
It just carries so much more power when it was made by someone who knows what it's going to be used for.
Yes.
And if you think of like those thousands of bees all making this stuff, and then it goes, this is crazy. But you asked me a question, I think in the notes that you sent me, about
Hmm.
what is a candle to me, how do I think about it. And
Yeah.
I literally think of it as a life cycle of a photon. It like
Hmm.
the sun has the nuclear fusion of elements which release photons at high heat and pressure. They travel 90 million miles. They
Mm.
come to our planet, and enter into the leaves of the plants and the trees and the flowers, and they photosynthesize that into chemical energy. They make nectar and pollen and flowers, and the bees pollinate that and take it back to the hive, and then through their biological processes take that and turn it into
Mm.
wax, and then the beekeepers get the wax. The
Yeah.
wax is, it's a cool product too because it's carbon neutral,
Hmm.
at least way more so than paraffin, because the beeswax is set aside for honey extraction. The main product of bees is honey, right? So the
Okay.
beeswax is kind of a secondary product. So it's already there after the honey extraction, and then all they need to do is clean it and
Mm.
send it to us. So that's what we use. And I think of it as when you're lighting that candle,
Hmm.
you're returning the beeswax material, or you're returning that life cycle back to its source. You're turning it back into
Wow.
photons again.
Yeah. Yeah. You
So
really
from a
are.
photon through the whole process and then back to photons, but along with your intention, right? So
Yes.
I think of them as all these, as magical tools, but as carriers of our intention, right? I think I
Hmm.
have a phrase I use of carry your intentions to the heavens and beyond. Like that's how I think of
Mm.
candles. But I mean, obviously there are a lot of other things there. They literally cleanse the space. When you light the candle, it creates a
Yeah.
high heat plasma. There you go. There's
Mm.
another connection to the sun. Like the
Yeah.
center of the candle is as hot as certain parts of the sun. The sun is made of plasma. The candle
Wow.
flame is made of plasma.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that connection is so beautiful to me. And so what, yeah, when you're letting them out, high heat plasma creates what are called negative ions.
Hmm.
And you've probably, I don't know if you've heard of them before, but they're like,
Yes.
yeah, they're ionized particles that are released into the air, and they do two things. They cling to contaminants in the air
Hmm.
that fall to the ground, so they kind of clean the air. And
Okay.
then also you breathe them in, and they bind to receptors in your olfactory system, which literally act as an antidepressant. So they make you
Mm.
happy. So you
Wow.
also get these after thunderstorms. You get these after snowstorms, around large bodies of water. Have you ever
Mm.
been like near a river and you just inhale and you're like, oh, I feel amazing?
Yeah.
Or at the shore?
I spend so much. I was at the beach today just because, like, yeah,
Yes.
living by the coast, I have to. It's grounding for me. I love inhaling large bodies of water.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's nature's antidepressant.
it
Just like this
is.
discovery that woods have these microorganisms that when you inhale them, they make
Mm.
you less depressed. The same thing with these ions, and so beeswax candles generate those. So
Hmm.
it's your way of indoors of that, which is also a powerful tool. And also, obviously, like they create a vibe, which can be romantic or sexy. It can be
Yeah.
healing. It can be intimate. We gather around fire at the table when we eat meals together.
Hmm.
We literally light candles for wishes on birthdays. It's like
Right.
I I remember getting into it, and like at first I was kind of like, this is so cheesy. Why am I making candles? And now I'm like, oh my god, I think candles are like one of the most profound possible objects of human culture.
I
Like
think so.
it's
Yeah.
so crazy. And there are in, as you asked me too, that I think they're in like literally every spiritual practice you could think of. So
Hmm. Yeah,
um
definitely.
yeah, Ayurvedic culture uses a form of meditation called Tritaka, where they stare at a candle flame
Mm.
for hours and hours. There's grimoires that talk about staring at a candle flame to
Mm.
summon spirits, to have
Hmm.
hallucinations. It gets wild.
Yeah, and in hoodoo practices too, like with the candle flame, interpreting the candle flames is really important as far as like messages from spirit, or especially if you're doing a ritual on someone, whether whatever it is, like
Oh
that.
wow.
Yeah, that flame. For example, there's these skull candle rituals that you can do in hoodoo where you can use them to like find somebody or do some dark things, but they can also be used to help like heal or cleanse and stuff. And so
Yeah.
whenever you do this specific ritual, you are essentially anointing that candle to embody like the person's soul. And so whenever the
Wow.
flame is lit on top of it, there's ways of interpreting it. Like if it doesn't light, then it's like a message like try again later, or if it like starts to sputter or something, or the way that the candle burns. So there's all sorts of interpretations. And sometimes it is really fascinating to see like and to know like relate the movement of this candle in how it's tied to the energy of the soul that that is intended for that ritual. Also, really quick, sorry about all the background noise. I don't know if you can hear it. I guess there's
I was gonna
fireworks or
say, speaking of
something.
candles, there's Roman candles going
Yeah,
off
I don't
behind
know
you.
what's going
Speaking
on
of
out
Romans and of
there.
candles, yeah, there's
Yeah.
fireworks. They're celebrating.
So
Yeah, I
something,
mean,
yeah.
it's great.
Yeah.
We're talking about light. We're talking about, yeah, this is great. I love it.
Yeah, cool. Okay,
No, I'm
yes.
into it. It adds like energy to what you're saying. Yeah.
Cool.
I
Yeah, it
love that.
does.
What you're saying is so awesome. I do remember people talking about candle flames and the way they flicker or even go out sometimes
Hmm.
has spell significance or significance for the
Yes.
divination. That's what I'm thinking. A
Yes.
candle can act as a divination tool, which is really wild. And
Totally.
then it made me think of something else, which is that Rudolf Steiner was an animist, and he was of the belief
Mm.
that there are elemental forces were literally like fairies. He called them the fire fairies or fire
Yeah.
spirits, and that they're alive, which is really wild to think about, that they
Hmm.
could be alive, and that there's songs in Waldorf schools that the little kids sing to the fire
Wow.
flame, the fire fairy, and stuff. And
Yeah.
this, I love the idea of animism, right? Like Shinto, everything being embodied with like spirit and intention is so
Yeah.
beautiful to me because I
Me
think it's
too.
like a more mindful way to live.
Hmm.
But um, oh my god, I was going to say something about animism and I can't remember.
It's okay.
Okay, hold on, I forget.
Okay, it's okay. If it comes back, if it comes back, we'll go
Yeah,
to it. But yeah, yeah, and I love when you said the whole process of like the photon, the life cycle of a photon through the candle making, and I think all that is so important, especially when using it in a ritual setting or in some sort of spiritual practice, because there's a whole energy and cultivation in that process alone, whether it's the photon coming from the sun, going through that process, and then the added process of you making the candle with your hands, and having a homemade thing. It's not coming from, a factory. I don't know if candles are made in factories, but whatever the case may
oh,
be.
they totally are. Yeah, I could
Yeah.
go off
Okay.
about that. Yeah,
Yeah.
like natural waxes like soy wax are
Hmm.
just fats that don't burn. You can't light a soybean
Mm.
on fire, and they put them in these big chambers, high pressure chambers,
Mm.
and so that the fats become like soluble or like
Yeah.
able to combine with petroleum gases, and they inject the chamber with oil gases, hexane, butane, stuff you find in lighters. So it's just paraffin or petroleum wax by a different name. So they
Mm.
do this with a lot of natural waxes, and it's all marketing. It's just
Yeah.
petroleum with good marketing combined with some kind of bean, right?
Yeah.
So and that kind of drives me crazy because when I first got into candles, people were like, you got to make scented soy. So I did for like a couple of years, and then Spirit told me like that's not the right way to go.
Yeah.
And I really discovered that it's like it's not sustainable. And anyway,
Mm.
I'll go off on that. But yeah,
Yeah.
don't you don't use soy wax.
Yeah, it has a more superficial feel or artificial feel to it when using it in practice too. And like,
Yeah.
not I don't practice hoodoo very much. I've dabbled in it, but
Oh,
that's a
cool.
very element nature based practice too, and it's important in some rituals that you buy products, whether it's an oil or a candle or whatever, that is handmade from a witch, because that just that energy behind it, the intention of the creation and everything, it helps the ritual. So I think using your candles in spiritual practices would only boost that magic even more because of who it's coming from and the intention behind the practice and everything, whether it's the name and the story, just everything behind it, rather than just like going to a witch shop or even going to the dollar store and getting some candles. And granted,
Yeah.
I've used both. I've used dollar store candles,
Same.
and
Yeah.
yeah, from witch shop. But and like, again, not that they don't work,
Yeah.
but it's just a different energy, and it just feels more natural with the beeswax candles, because it is, and especially knowing who it's coming from and everything, that is such a delicate process, and it's all energy work, right? And so it's all just kind of combined, and to empower the magic that we do. So I think that's
Yeah.
awesome that you have that business. Yeah.
Thanks. I mean, they're
Yeah.
all tools, right? It's like a dollar store candle or like a little purple birthday candle, all that
Yeah.
stuff I think will work because it's the intention, right? And it's like going to the store. You can take the bus. The bus will get you to the store, or you can go in the car of your dreams, driven by your like your lover, right, or something. It's
Yeah.
like there's different. They're different ways to get the same result, but one I think is kind of obviously like more powerful or like just more interesting for you or more it brings you
Hmm.
more success. That's what I find with magical tools, but I don't always use candles in my spiritual practice. A lot of my
Hmm.
spiritual practice is just me alone, no wands, no swords,
Hmm.
no ropes, just very much internal, right? And
Yeah.
everything in the ritual is imaginary, and so you're exercising that imagination. But I do find that like some elemental tools like candles or fire or water, smoke can be
Hmm.
really helpful in spell work.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. And same. I don't use them in all of my practices, but you know, when I do, it boosts it, and it feels
Yeah.
necessary. It's just really like intuitively what I feel is right. And there's something so mesmerizing about candle flames too. And especially I've also done some medium work in the past, and whenever the
Wow.
connection to spirit is strong, the candles will do incredible things, or the flames will do incredible things, you know, take certain shapes or grow to a certain height that's just beyond
Wow.
normal. Yeah, and so
Yeah.
it's interesting, the connection between spirit and light too. And so it gets me kind of to a question that I didn't send to you in the beginning, but and it's not really a question, I more so wrote this as an idea, but it's like the relationship connection between light and consciousness. Like, is there anything in your process of making the candles, or just anything that you want to share or can share just on, you know, because at our core beings, like we are light beings, right?
Yeah.
And well, if you believe so, you know, and and so in a way, I'm sure we're made up of some level of photons. Maybe not. I'm not scientific really, but you know, and so
Well,
I'm
all
not.
matter is particles vibrating, right, at
Yeah.
specific frequencies, and really I think the most basic bit of information is a qubit, and that everything might just be a simulation anyway.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know. I love the idea that we're made of light, and it's so interesting. I did think of what I was talking about the flames. You were talking about hoodoo, and
Hmm.
in these rituals, the flames doing things and seeming almost like they could be alive or like fairies. I remember what I was going to say is that
Yeah.
the candle flame being composed of a high heat plasma, right,
Hmm.
like the sun. There's this theory now in physics. It's very on the edge, but I have heard of it. The concept that plasma is a creature, like
Hmm.
things made of plasma are conscious or sentient in their own way, and that
Okay.
they seek out energy to consume and could be a form of life that we don't understand. It is like way out there, that theory, but it is gaining traction and there's academic papers being written about it. So
Hmm.
the idea that the high heat flame, the plasma inside a candle flame is a living being that you've created through your intention by lighting the fuel source, and suddenly
Wow.
there's like a being of plasma there. I know this
Wow.
is really woo and I have like
No, no, I
very
love it.
minutes to talk about this, but I love thinking about this, and maybe that has something to do with it. I
Yeah.
what I do understand about light, and you said light and consciousness. The one thing I understand from our research alone is that, oh my God, our lab discovered a whole new sensory system in the
Hmm.
human eye, right?
Hmm.
It not connected to the visual system. We know now it has some connection, but it's,
Hmm.
the eyes for a long time it was like the eyes see light and dark, the eyes see color. That's what the
Hmm.
eyes are for, right? It's the
Yeah.
same way like, oh, your ears are for hearing, but then they're like, oh, but there's an ancient pathway in the ears, and now they're also about balance, the vestibular system,
Hmm.
right? The inner ear. And now
Yeah.
we know that eyes are for seeing,
Hmm.
but they're also for regulating hormones, for sleep and
Hmm.
wake, and for mood even too, and behavior. So it's
Hmm.
like, wow, it's a to me, there's so it's so clear how much we do not know, right? And
Yeah.
science is making these incredible advancements. It's insane how quickly these advancements are being made and actualized and discovered. But there's so much we don't know yet, and
Yeah.
I definitely think that there's a connection between light and consciousness. I think that if we are just particles or energy vibrating at certain frequencies, then that's, light is just energy vibrating at
Yeah.
certain frequencies. So light, I know from our research, light affects us, like
Mm.
sound affects us.
Yeah.
So how that has to deal with consciousness, I'm not sure. I do
It's
know
okay.
that it was a driving force behind Dr. Brainerd to start the research lab, because he was interested in the pineal gland as the seat of
Mm.
the soul, as a key to the mysteries of consciousness, and that led him into light and the
Mm.
discovery that the pineal gland is innervated by these cells that are sensitive to light and controls melatonin production and maybe other things. So
Yeah.
it may not always be the direct link you're thinking of, but there's connections there, I'm sure.
Yeah, yeah. No, and that's interesting. I wasn't even expecting like to take it to the flames being conscious of itself. But I love that you took it there.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know.
No, but I believe that, and it's
Yeah,
interesting.
maybe stars are conscious in a way, like we don't know. Maybe there's like a whole ecosystem on a higher dimension, or like in a way that we just can't fathom.
Completely. I completely and it's I was camping last weekend and we were sitting like by the campfire at night, and we were listening to psytrance music, and apparently this kind of gets a little bit not too off topic, but psytrance, the BPM to psytrance is supposedly is meant to create and imitate the resting BPM of a human heart, the average human heartbeat. And so the
Awesome.
intention behind that is to align people to their natural heart's rhythm through dance and through music. And so, and the history behind it too goes back to also like almost like the shamanic days when people would dance around fires with drumming and everything, and that drumming was usually the same BPM as what psytrance is. And so my point of all this is that while I was just mesmerized watching the campfire last weekend, and I swear it was just the energy that, like, the fire seemed like it was dancing to the music, like the
Yeah,
way when the bass would drop or the beats and would just stretch and move, and the candle, or the not the candle, the campfire started to move with it. And I was just in a trance almost watching this.
yeah,
And it was just so beautiful. So I think it also makes me think too about the consciousness of the fire, and maybe just it being in the natural rhythm of like life, and all of that kind of just combining at once and moving together. And so it was a really cool, fascinating, like, just my thought process I was having, like watching this fire last weekend, and now thinking about it too. And and I think it could be conscious. I don't think that's too woo, but granted, like, I'm a very woo woo person, so it's hard to be too woo here. But
yeah.
yeah.
I could see that. I mean, our imagination, right, is partially or maybe even wholly the arbiter of what's real, or at least what we perceive, right? So
Mhm.
yeah, I think the fire could be conscious,
Yeah,
or at least could have its own form of spirit.
definitely.
Definitely, our ancestors believed that the fire was a spirit and spirits lived in the fire.
Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah.
so we honor
Interesting.
them when we think about it that way.
Exactly.
Uh,
Yeah.
I love what you said about psytrance music, because I'm into music and sound healing, and
Mm.
also the Monroe Institute, and the idea that you can
Ah, the
listen to certain
Monroe Institute.
frequencies. Yeah,
Yes.
right.
I love
Listen
that.
to certain frequencies and then start to like unlock abilities, and it's awesome.
Yeah.
And yeah, I definitely like electronic music has some real gifts. I'm sure everyone, or maybe some of your listeners, have put on YouTube channels for like sound healing and frequency healing, and I
Mhm.
find I think there's something to that. I don't know. It's interesting,
It is.
and it definitely makes the candle flames move. And at the there could be, I'm sure there's mystical elements and interesting elements there, but also just in a scientific physical sense, it's moving the airwaves, which will, the candle flames will move
Mm,
to the music,
that's a
just
good
because of that,
point. Yeah,
because the speakers are vibrating at a certain frequency
that
too.
makes sense. Yeah,
But
yeah,
but that's just part of it.
yeah.
Just because it's partially mundane doesn't mean it's fully mundane.
Right, exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So there's still some magic in it.
And the mundane can be magical. Yeah,
Exactly.
absolutely.
I was about to
So
say the same thing. Yeah, totally.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, cool. So, is there? I feel like there's so much I could get into with sound and stuff too, but we can, I don't know, save that for another time as
sure,
well.
sure.
We can kind of, just start to wrap up and everything. I think I've kind of touched on most of the questions. But is there anything else that you feel called to share? Just about your
Yeah,
journey or what you're doing now, the direction of Mithras Candles, anything like that.
yeah. There was thing I kind of skipped over. I don't know if I have to get into it, but it was basically from forming Mithras at the lab. Mithras kind of led me to a spiritual awakening by connecting me with a
Hmm.
practicing witch who was very public about it, and
Yeah.
then her along with this artist, occult artist and professor Jesse Bransford at NYU Steinhardt,
Mm.
put together an occult humanities conference, which I cannot recommend highly enough.
Hmm.
It is sort of an academic and art conference talking about the occult and humanities. So in writing, in painting, in poetry,
Hmm.
uh, and it's just incredible. So there's 2 days of lectures and a party, and I got to go as a vendor. And I
Hmm.
went as a vendor, and I'm surrounded by these incredible practitioners and magicians, and I was still
Hmm.
not doing that. I was interested, but not doing it yet.
Hmm.
And they called Circle there. This was the year 2017
Okay.
in the Wiccan tradition. And sorry, I'm
That's
so
okay.
sorry about the camera.
That's okay.
And so yeah, so they called Circle, and I had my like come to Jesus moment. I felt a
Hmm.
presence. I felt moved,
Hmm.
and I became a believer in that something had occurred, but I didn't know what. And that
Hmm.
was really when I became awakened. I went home and I made a big black drippy candle, which I'd never made. I'd
Hmm.
only used gold. I'm like, only gold, only light. I made a big black candle.
Yeah.
And I went to the park nearby, which in Philadelphia here, I don't know if you know this, but Philadelphia was the major port city for the Western Hemisphere,
Hmm.
bigger than competing with Boston, bigger than New York City in the
Wow.
1600s into the mid 1700s.
Okay.
And all of the cults and sort of religious weirdos leaving Europe at the time fled here,
Hmm.
and they landed in Philly, and most of them moved on up into upstate New York, which is why
Hmm.
upstate New York is such a fun place to be. There's all kinds of esoteric traditions there, but
Hmm.
the followers of Johannes Kelpius stayed here, and they settled. They were very early. This is in the late 1600s. They
Hmm.
settled the woods nearby here. We're very lucky in Philadelphia, the sixth largest city in the US, to have a huge wooded park system in what's called the
Hmm.
Wissahickon Valley. It's the
Hmm.
second largest urban park in the world behind Tokyo. I can't recommend it
Wow.
enough for hiking. It's incredible. It doesn't have the views of Colorado or like the West
Yeah.
Coast, but as far as like you're in a major metropolitan city, but suddenly you're in the woods, it's the only
I
reason
love
I'm still
that.
here in the city. The
Makes
only
sense.
reason. And so the founders of Johannes Kelpius lived there in the Wissahickon,
Oh,
within a
wow.
mile of my house. Was their longhouse that they lived in, and they did astronomical observations, and they predicted the end of the world and other occurrences. And
Hmm.
anyway, there's a cave of Kelpius there, and it's
Hmm.
got a big sort of occult mural. I'm sorry, obelisk,
Hmm.
and has various symbols and stuff on it. It's a really powerful and slightly spooky place, especially to me at the time because everything was still very mysterious.
Yeah.
That world was mysterious to me.
Yeah.
I went and I sort of did a ritual there, and I got a rock from nearby, which I know I shouldn't have done. I'm so sorry, but I had no idea what I was doing. And
Yeah.
I sort of
Yeah.
put it into the big drippy candle, and I made a spell out of nothing. I had no idea what I was doing, but I had the intention of I need a life transformation, a midlife. I want a
Hmm.
family. I want children. I want to know more about these mysteries. I,
Hmm.
I feel like I'm not being authentic to myself. And my
Mm.
entire life kind of right after that exploded. Like,
Wow.
I don't know if you want to leave this in or cut it out because it's being kind of vulnerable, but like I got a divorce. My mom
Hmm.
had a stroke. My neighbor's dog tried to rip my face off and gave me
Oh
a
my
big scar
God.
on my face. And like all these like super, super transformational things happened that
Yeah.
ripped away the mask I was wearing and started
Mm.
me on like my spiritual path and like a journey towards my authentic self. And
Yeah.
I find that that is common in like midlife. They call it like the middle passage or midlife awakening. But
Hmm.
yeah, for me, it involves a magic. And
Yeah.
I really uh, started to like look to these people around me that I met at the conference and other people like new thought leaders like
Hmm.
Mitch Horowitz. And I don't know if you know him and other
Mm-mm.
people and like listening to lectures of Neville Goddard,
Yeah.
like new thought, you know what I mean? Like manifestation
Hmm.
kind of stuff. And it really helped the business grow and it helped me grow. And that was kind
Mm.
of my awakening. And then I met my partner who was like, hey, you want kids? Here's the kids I have. Let's make more. And so that happened. And she was like, also, I'm a witch. And here's my circle and you can come join us for pagan holidays. So I
Nice.
just like I got like spirit got me in there. I got in there and
Yeah.
oh my god, I'm celebrating the wheel of the year. Like we're doing a solstice
Wow.
spiral with Mithras candles. Like this is beautiful,
That's
you know?
amazing. Yeah.
So I got in there and we did it. And then, so that was my journey for many years. And I'm so grateful to my partner, Sochi, for that.
Mm.
And the people I met through her and the people I met through Pam and
Hmm.
all these people who have helped Mithras along. I feel so blessed and grateful.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to share that part. I feel a lot of gratitude, but that was my own journey. But
Yeah.
then recently, I just came into so many life challenges
Mm.
that I had to find. I started exploring LBRP, right,
Mm.
and like ceremonial magic,
Hmm.
and I found that with the LBRP, I quickly shed a lot of bullshit that I was
Mm.
holding on to, and it really that's when my real magical journey began, and that was just a
Mm.
couple of years ago. So I
Yeah.
came out of so I do still identify. I very respect earth focused religions and pagan and neo paganism, but
Yeah.
I think of myself more, I guess maybe more of as a chaos magician or like a
Yeah.
ceremonial magician. Although I don't stand on ceremony, I don't wear robes, I don't use swords and stuff.
Yeah.
I'm just doing what works for me and just talking to spirit directly, and
Yeah.
that's really powerful for me. I was an agnostic slash atheist for almost my entire life,
Oh,
so and a
really?
man of science. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
So
So what a
yeah,
beautiful transformation. Yeah, to get you and how cool too that you created this ritual with this black candle that ultimately was the catalyst for all these changes it seems like or had some level of involvement, like
I don't
even
know
if
who
you're
I was
just
contacting or what, but yeah,
right. Something was guiding you or someone.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's
And
crazy.
totally okay to be vulnerable. I'll leave all that stuff in as long as you're comfortable sharing it
Yeah,
too. So,
yeah, definitely.
um yeah, but it's yeah, and it the inner guidance we have can really lead us in strange directions sometimes that maybe we can't see at the time, like why or don't understand at the time, like where it's going to lead and how it's all going to unfold. But then in hindsight, we connect the dots and we're like, oh, well, now this makes sense. And now here we are. Um,
Yeah,
and I love that. I love that you sort of have this transformation from atheism and now very much not that, and just more into the mystic and spirituality side. And I think that's beautiful and very inspiring as well. Um, and so, okay, so we'll kind of wrap up in a second and everything. So, I guess one question I have is so you mentioned your son goes to the Waldorf schools. Do you guys practice? Is he aware of like witchcraft practices that you guys do, or your magic practices, and is he involved in any of that? And
for
how do you go
sure. As
about
if
that?
I mean, his coming into the world was a blessing way, which I
Mm.
think is definitely like more of a pagan or shamanic tradition, as far as I understand. But where you gather your friends and family, and everyone held a sphere of jasper that we made into a
Mm.
necklace that I still wear now on
Oh
me.
wow,
So I was
yeah.
calling him into being, And so he's always been aware of and involved in magical ritual.
Yeah.
Nothing too elaborate, just
Sure.
earth focused spiritual practice. We
Yeah.
do a gratitude mandala around
Mm.
Thanksgiving, where
Mm.
we give fruits of the earth like beans and seeds and
Mm.
flowers and make a beautiful mandala on the ground, and then we stomp it down into the ground, back giving it back to the earth.
Oh,
And
cool.
then my favorite one, which I love, that those are kind of the two. That's kind of the main one, and the other one is the wheel, the spiral, the solstice spiral for
Yeah.
the winter solstice. So that's a part of the Waldorf tradition, which I discovered randomly because we were doing it outside of Waldorf.
Mm.
But you get a big uh, link of greens, like a greens rope of
Mm-hmm.
evergreen branches, boughs, and then you put it in a spiral, and then people go in, and there's a big candle or someone holding a big candle in the center, and youngest to oldest, the children come in and people come in, and they light their unlit candle from that center candle, and you sing a song about how you're returning light and hope into the world.
Wow.
That you're at the darkest time, which is the winter solstice. You're at the literally in the darkest hour.
Mm.
You're bringing the light of hope and back and making it alive again. And that's, if I only had to pick one ritual to do for the rest of my life, that's the one, because we have a huge party. Everything's only lit by the beeswax candles that we make.
Mm.
And if anyone's ever in Philly and wants to come, hit me up on my DMs.
Yeah.
And yeah, so,
Cool.
and we have a lot of people, and it's so enlivening and vital in this dark
Mm.
moment and cold moment in the winter. And then we do
Mm.
this solstice spiral with the children, and it's really beautiful.
Yeah. Well, very cool. I actually have family. My grandma lives in Southampton, Pennsylvania. And so
Oh, nice.
my dad grew up in Philly. So
Oh,
he's,
wow.
yeah, yeah. So I've grown up like kind of going there and everything. So I might take you up on this on coming
Oh
down
my
in the
God, it'd be
winter
so awesome to see you.
time.
You're so welcome. We have
Yeah.
all kinds of cool witchy people here. So
Oh, I love
yeah,
that. Cool. Nice. Well,
yeah,
Ben, this has been such an amazing interview. I'm thank you for sharing your knowledge and just the wisdom that
yeah.
you have. It's been really, really fascinating to hear everything that you've talked about and the science behind it, the myths behind it, the just the creation of this business. And you have my full support in everything that you do. Like it's such I appreciate the product so much. And I
Yeah. Thank
especially
you.
feel after having connected with you, like just the heart-centeredness behind the mission too, and
Yeah.
it seems like an aligned passion for you, an aligned pursuit, like it's being guided by spirit, and that's an amazing
Thanks.
thing, and I'm glad
Yeah,
that
we
you
do.
found that path.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
I didn't mention that, but we do donate. We donate to the Natural Resource Defense Council, which is a
Mm,
nonprofit that protects the natural world from being, pillaged for corporate profit. And
mm,
then the other organization we donate profits to is the Xerxes Pollinator Society. They
mm.
protect pollinators like bees, and they're trying to get legislation passed in the United States. It's already been passed in places like Canada and Europe to ban certain pesticides that kill bees and other
Good.
pollinators. So they do really good work, and it's both something I'm passionate and believe about. I was raised to be an environmentalist and
Mm.
conscious and aware of the natural world and how it needs to be protected, but also that's our bread and butter. If the bees go, no beeswax, no candles,
Right.
also no food. So
Exactly. Yeah, I know.
yeah,
The bees
it's
need to
important work.
stay. Yeah, for
Yeah,
multiple reasons. Well, it is
but
appreciated
thank you
work
so
too.
much. Yeah,
You're welcome. Yeah, and I hope to, talk again and stay connected. But it's a
would love that.
pleasure having you on the channel, and thank you to everybody who has watched this video, made it this far. I hope you learned something, and I hope you go purchase some Mithras Candle products because they are incredible tools to use, whether you're for your spiritual practices or just to create an ambiance in your room, whatever you want to do. It's a great quality product to have. So thank you
Awesome.
so much, Ben. So I appreciate
Cool.
you.
Thanks, Pixie. Take
Mhm.
care, everyone.
All right, thank you guys. Till next time.